Welcome, 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 and welcome back to Inside Out, exploring the roads to redemption, where we focus on, where we examine specifically challenges with the justice impacted persons, families, groups of people, how they commonly face issues, and we speak to these issues that are not commonly spoken about. And I am your co host, Dr. Lawrence, and I'm the proud founder and CEO of A Bridge to Light, where we focus on disrupting the school to prison pipeline and enabling a more seamless reentry of those who are formerly incarcerated. And it's my honor and pleasure to be joined by my brother, my friend, the co-host with the most, Brother Thomas Cotton.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We got an exciting show for you coming up. My name's Thomas Cotton. I'm the founder and CEO of Redemption and Advancement Alliance. And as I mentioned, we have a great show. We have a guest today, none other than Miss Jesse Mabery. She's dedicated to supporting women and children through trauma. Jesse has over 15 years of experience supporting justice-impacted women. Her passion is to help other women, and that was sparked by her desire to help herself to overcome all her challenges in spite of. She advocates for reentry and housing needs of the justice impacted, and her motto is, "Where you've been is not who you are."
Wow.
Jesse is a solution seeker who is driven and determined to make a difference for women reentering society by advocating for attainable and affordable housing without bias from landlords, contributing to the creation of programming for justice impacted men and women, and implementing facilitating programs for them also. She's a member of the National Alliance on Mental Health, Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, National Incarceration Association, and Family Unification Network. Jesse is a certified peer specialist in mental health. She's a certified peer specialist in addictive disorders, certified forensic peer mentor, and certified Stevens minister. Her advocacy work and volunteerism is focused on family, mental health, and support for justice and system impacted people. Currently, Jesse is Reentry Program Director Manager for the National Incarceration Association, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the family of the incarcerated and incarcerated individuals also. Welcome, Jesse. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Wow. Well, it's good to have you. You know, over the years, we've been able to have a great connection in this work, but not only that, you and I have a great connection. I definitely appreciate all that you are and all that you have done, and just your genuineness about being in this space of life. So, and you are super special to my life. So I appreciate you joining us today.
And I appreciate being here. It's an honor to be here with you two gentlemen today. Thank you for inviting me again.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Dr. Lawrence, do we have any things that you want to share or ask of Jesse today for our show and our listeners?
Well, I tell you, I was just sitting here thinking, that's why I was like a little dead air. I was just thinking about all the unique positions and unique locations that our Miss Mabery has been involved with, and I'm just sitting here in awe. But I would like to hear your story. You know, who are you?
Well, just briefly, I am a woman who started out life as a professional.
Yes, ma'am.
I was a mom. I was married. I lived my life normally as everyone else did. I got caught up into drugs, domestic violence,
Yes, ma'am.
and just one particular day, everything that could go wrong had already gone wrong. And I found myself in a very precarious situation where I had to make a choice. And the choice I decided to make took a man's life.
Yes, ma'am.
And it destroyed two families' lives. Two families that to this day I respect their privacy. So whenever I tell people how I came to be in the space that I was in, which was the penitentiary, I always respect the privacy of both of those families,
Yes.
because the story itself is not important. What's
Mhm.
important is the fact that because of a poor choice that I made, I left my 11-year-old daughter and I destroyed two families' lives. And I take full accountability and responsibility for that. I entered the penitentiary at the age of 34. I left my 11-year-old daughter behind with my parents. She had a village around her, my siblings, her father, everyone. My parents made sure that I was the decision maker in her life. They made sure that we were able to bond throughout her life.
Yes, ma'am.
And my child became the catalyst for my ability to do whatever I needed to do. I had a woman visit me while I was in what they call admissions in the penitentiary, and she was what they called a lifer. And she let me know. She said, "You have two options. You can do the time or the time can do you."
Mm.
She said, "I'll be back to see you in a week. You can let me know which one it is, and I'll tell you how to do it." And when she came back, I told her I'm going to do the time. So she gave me a path to follow, and I followed it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I decided that this was going to be my new community. The only thing that was going to be different in my life, as far as mine and my daughter's life, was that I had a different address than hers. And I
Mm.
chose to look at the penitentiary as a different community that I lived in. And that's what it was for the next 27 years.
Wow.
In those 27 years, I made it my business to take full advantage of everything that it had to offer me, mental health wise, spiritually, physically. I made it my business to take full advantage of it, mainly because I had to show my child that no matter what you're facing, you've got to do what you need to do. That was my in spite of. In spite of where I was going to handle my business. And I did handle my business. I made sure that my child could see that no matter what adversity you had to face, you had to make the best of it. You had to be your best in that environment.
Wow.
And that's what I did. And I did it not because I wanted to get brownie points with staff or brownie points with the women, but because my child, who was growing into a woman, needed to see what it looked like to be a woman, regardless of the environment that you're in. She needed to see what it looked like to be a Black woman against the odds.
Mm.
She needed to see what it looked like to be a Black woman who was considered to be a statistic.
Yes, ma'am.
She needed to see what it was like to be a Black woman that no matter what was going to make it. Because a Black woman raised me to believe that. And that's the same thing I wanted to instill in her.
I love it.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's what I did. I
Wow.
did what every Black woman should do, what every Black woman has to do.
Come on.
I made it in spite of. I held my head up. I had my new address. My child did not whisper about where her mother was. Her friends, she kept the same friends from grade school all the way through high school. Everyone knew where I was at. When she became a mother, her children knew where I was at. They told their friends where I was at. We didn't keep it a secret. There was no shame in what we did. As the kids would say, no shame in our game whatsoever.
Yes, ma'am.
And she would say, my mom just graduated. I'm going to my mom's graduation. I'm going to my mom's this, my mom's that. So, hey, that's how we did life. I was just at a different address than she was.
Wow.
I talked to her every single day. I called her every single day. I called my grandkids every single day when they got their own cell phones. I was a grandma regardless. I was just at a different address, as most grandparents are.
Yes, ma'am.
But I led my life at a different address, yearning to go home, not knowing when I would go home, heartbroken that I had made the choice that I had made that put me at a different address, but I was going to live that life regardless. And I was going to make the best of it. And I did. In so doing, I tried to make it good for everyone around me too. I tried to make sure that the people around me, the women around me, understood what quality of life meant, not the address that you were at, but the quality of life.
Wow.
And tried to show them how to be a parent from prison. You know, that was part of my job as a Stephen minister. I was not only with mothers who were about to give birth and knew that within 36 hours they had to give their child up. They may not see their child at all. Their child may be going into foster care, depending on how much time she was doing. But I was also with women who were crossing over, who were passing on, and I would meet their families, and I would promise their families that she would not die alone, because I had a crew that worked with me, that, and I was over the Stephen ministers, and we would make sure we would do vigilance around the clock with these women until they crossed over. You know, so that was part of my work too. I would also help women that were coming into prison for the first time, just as I had done many years before. And I helped them to transition, to accept the time that they had to do, and encourage them to understand that it's okay that you left your 5 kids behind. I know it's hard, but you can still be a mom from prison. Even though statistically they try to tell you that I'm putting you in here and now it's all hopeless. Your kids are out here and they're just going to become statistic too. No, they're not. Because you could still be a mom, you could still be a parent, and your kids can still be their best. My child was never incarcerated. She was a very successful businesswoman. She owned her own home as a single parent. And when I got home to watch one child graduating from high school and the other one graduating from college. So my child was not a statistic in any way. And her mother did 27 years. I left her at the age of 11. She picked me up at the age of 38 and brought me from Ohio to Atlanta, Georgia, to her home where she had a mother-in-law suite waiting for me, not knowing when I would come home. So no, my Black daughter was not a statistic, and her Black mother was in prison the entire time through most of her childhood. We were not statistics. Her Black mother was an articulate woman in prison. People would tell me I was one of 3 women that they would use, and they used me for 12 years to speak to criminology classes, psychologists, and different police departments and things like that would come in, and they would always have the same 3 women speak to them. And to look at us, you would not even you would be amazed that at the charges that we had. One woman was a white woman about my age. The other one was a white female, but she looked Latino and she was young. But we all 3 came in with life tales. We all had the same charge, but you didn't know what our charge was until we told you. So we would tell our stories and their mouths would drop. I was the only Black woman of the 3, but 2 of us were very articulate, the 2 older ones. The younger white woman was like yo-yo homegirl, but they were expecting me to come off like yo-yo homegirl because they're looking at me as the Black woman. And they would always ask me questions that were not necessarily ignorant because they were just naive. And a lot of time, people of other nationalities can be very naive. So I wouldn't take offense, but they would say, like, how can you be so articulate? To look at you, I would never think that you were in here for this type of crime. And I'm like, how does someone look
Right.
that's committed a crime? I mean, how can you judge how someone's supposed to look or speak?
Yep.
And as a Black woman, that's one of the things that my judge said. He couldn't understand how I could have even found myself in that position, speaking the way I did. So if I had come in there with a couple of teeth missing, unable to enunciate my words properly, you would have given me as much time. Is that what you're saying? Right. I mean, it didn't make sense. The juxtaposition is ridiculous. Those are the type of things as a Black woman that you have to deal with.
Yes, ma'am.
But in spite of, I just had to be my best. In prison, they called me Miss Jesse. Not just the women, but the staff did too. And they didn't do that because I walked around demanding it. It's because I carried myself in such a way where they could call me that. And I treated them with the same respect in return. And I still do to this day. The staff, when I got ready to go, they were just as happy for me as I was for myself. You know, they did everything in their power to help me to transition from one state to another. I'm in contact with a lot of staff to this day that keeps an eye on me, checks on me and they're in Ohio and I'm in Georgia. You know, I constantly, they contact me when one of the girls will get more time that's a lifer because they know I can lift her spirits up, and they make sure that she can talk to me for a few minutes on the phone, things of this nature. Because I went to the board 6 times, so they know I can tell her how to do it. Because every time I left that board with my head held high. The only thing that broke my heart was that I had to make a phone call that was going to hurt my family.
Yes, ma'am.
But I kept my head up and I did what I had to do next, because in spite of, I was going to do what had to come next.
Love it.
Nothing was going to break my spirit. Nothing was going to break my spirit. You could not take, everybody used to say, how can you smile? Because you can't take my joy. You could take my freedom because I let you take my freedom through my choices. But you could not take my mental health. You could not take my joy. You could only take that if I gave it to you. And I wasn't giving it to anyone because I had to keep it for my baby.
Man.
That's basically my story.
Well, I think that's in a nutshell. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah. Now you see why I love Jesse and her fire, because in spite of any opposition, she remained who she is through the process, and even then some. You know, she's a definite blessing to many, and not just now, not since she's been released, but through everything. You know, there's choices we make in life. she acknowledged that she had a choice, and she made a bad choice at one time, but then her choice was never taken from her. Her dignity wasn't stripped from her. She is who she is. And so thanks for sharing that, Jesse.
And please like, share, subscribe this show and all the shows, because this as Jesse mentioned, the naivete. People are naive to these stories. We try to keep our stories between 30 to 45 minutes. But these are the 30 to 45 minutes that people are not talking about at all. At all. And this is a very, very unique platform, which we dive into issues which we'll rather not talk about and kind of turn our heads away and form narratives in our mind about Jesse without even hearing her speak, without hearing why or what got her to abusing drugs and or the violent demonstration that led her to prison. So we don't even know that part and piece. We just want to form an image about someone who went to prison, and now that's the narrative. So you must you must share, you must subscribe to this podcast, because there's nowhere on YouTube, you name it, that's speaking at this level, with this level of the lived experience coupled with the academia to bring it to you. So I thank you so much, Jesse, for sharing what you've shared with us thus far. We got some questions for you, and when we ask you, we're just going to get out the way and let you go. So with that, Thomas, if it's okay, can I ask another question?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, you mentioned that that there was drug abuse, there was violence prior to you entering the correction facility. What was the services to facilitate you getting clean, or you not abusing drugs and or violence? Was there service? Were there holistic services? As you mentioned, you took advantage of all the services, but were they properly aligned for you to reenter society, or was that just your own personality that got you through? Was it the system, or was it you that got you through?
No, the system. I'm going to say this quite honestly. The system, when you're in the system, there are programs available to you that will assist you in all areas. It's up to you to take those programs. Not only is it up to you to take advantage of those programs, it's up to you to work those programs. Then once you work those programs, some work them for the certificates, some work them so that they can get their freedom. Some work them because they really want to make a difference in their lives. I was one that wanted to make a difference in my life because I didn't know when I was going home. So the certificate meant nothing to me.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to make a difference in my life. I didn't just work the program. I let the program work on me. And I practiced it until it became second nature for me in my life, because I needed something different. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So I had to have something different other than what I was doing. I thought I was smart. That wasn't working. My best day got me there. My best thought process. So I needed a different thought process. I needed to work. There are many programs that were available to me in the prison system, and I took advantage of all of them: domestic violence, recovery programming, CBT programming, in-house peer-run CBT programming, intensive CBT programming. So I took advantage of all of it, every drop of it. I was in vocational programming. I'm a certified dog handler. I'm a journeyman in optometry lab. There are so many things that I could do. I mean, 27 years, you get a lot in, I didn't want to be idle. I didn't want to be idle. There's so many things that I can do. So I had a plethora of things to choose from. But in doing all of these things, I didn't realize that I was positioning myself for what I'm doing now. I didn't realize that then. But by doing all these different things and by working on myself, I was positioning myself for a time such as this. When I used to hear that statement, for a time such as this, I really didn't know what it meant until I got back home. And then I knew exactly what it meant.
Excellent. Excellent.
But yeah,
Yeah.
if you take advantage of the programming and you work it into your life as an individual, regardless of what's going on around you in that environment, you're going to be whatever you were destined to be. You're going to be your absolute best when you leave.
I love how what you said, my best thought got me here. Like up to this point, this was the best thought that I had, and this is the way I dealt with things. And so, being able to say, I'm going to deal with things different in spite of where you're at, in spite of where you're at, in spite of all the adversity, in spite of being away from family. My best thoughts got me here. There's some change that needs to happen, and I think that's a special thought to have right there, and really to live it out and to continue to live it out. I mean, that's amazing to hear, because all of us have times where we've made bad decisions.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
How many people will take that moment to say, wait a minute, my thought process got me to this place. What can I do different? And so that's an amazing thought right there. Yeah. So what's your next question, Dr. Lawrence?
Well, again, you took an advantage. You've taken advantage of the time and of the resources while you were incarcerated. What were your greatest challenges while incarcerated, and also what were your greatest challenges reentering society?
My greatest challenges while I was incarcerated was adjusting to having no real say in where I moved.
Mm-hmm.
But once I figured out that I still had a say in how I moved, then it didn't really matter.
No, that's good.
My biggest challenge coming out was in adjusting to the fact that now I had a say in where I moved and how I moved.
Okay.
Simultaneously. But I had adjusted to only being able to do one.
Right. Right.
So now I had to readjust to doing both.
Yeah.
For instance, my daughter, she asked me, did I want to fly back or drive back? She knew I used to love doing long distance driving. And I said, I want to drive back because I wanted cars going by me, trucks going by me, noise, busyness. I needed to hear and see all of that. I wanted to see mountains and all of these things. And I needed all of that busy noise. Well, once we got to the house, she said, would you like to go in a Walmart? I said, sure. She said, are you sure you're going to be okay with that? I said, sure. It didn't bother me at all. She said, Mom, buy whatever you want to buy. I went to the hygiene section and I bought shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste, lotion, and the biggest bottles of each one I could. And my daughter was just standing there looking at me like, why are you buying? I'm talking big bottles. Okay. And she's like, Mom, why are you doing that? I said, because I want to get make sure I have enough. She said, Mom, you can come in the store a million times. I still bought them. I didn't care what she said. Then I spent that whole first week in my beautiful area. Never left my area. Now I live in a cul-de-sac. I live in a suburban area. I could go wherever I wanted. You know what I'm saying? Never left my area. Had a deck off my living room area. Never even went out on my deck. I'd look out there, wouldn't go out there. Finally, one day she said, Mom, you can leave this area. It didn't even dawn on me that I was so used to being in a confined area that I didn't venture out.
Right.
So I had to learn how to do things just because I could.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had learned to adapt in a small area and staying there. So that was my biggest challenge. That and the cell phone. We are not even going to talk about the cell phone.
Give us one cell phone challenge.
One cell phone challenge was when my granddaughter put this cell phone, which was state of the art. You know, they had to get me state of the art, right? As soon as I got in the car, my granddaughter put it in my hand, said, here, Grandma, here's your phone. I already programmed it. Everything's in there. Here's all you have to do. This is how you use it. This is how you, and all I could do was look at it. It rang and I didn't even know how to say hello. That was one cell phone challenge. I didn't even know how to get it so that I could say hello. I didn't know that you were supposed to swipe across to make so that you could say hello. I could see it was ringing. I saw this red thing and this green thing, and I didn't know I was supposed to swipe towards the right so that it would open up and I could talk to the person. I was a mess. I was like, why can't I say anything to him? And she's like, Grandma, just do this. And I was like, oh my God. It was so that was just devastating for me. That
Wow.
cell phone was ridiculous. And then that little keyboard, what is that? And you use your thumbs. I spent my whole life typing like this, and you're telling me use my thumbs? It made no
Yeah.
sense to me.
Wow.
So Jesse, how long you been home? Let's look.
I have now been home. Wait a minute. 3 years and 4 months.
3 years. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
over 3 years. So that
Yeah.
gives you an idea of how phones were 3 years ago. It's not like we're talking, back in the BlackBerry days or whatever. We're talking about recent times, no keyboards on your phones and different other things. Jesse, when
Oh
you
no, when
said
I
that,
left, telephones were it was a princess phone, okay, push
That's
yeah,
right.
button. That's when I left. That's what you were using.
yeah,
So that little thing they put in my hand that you could barely see the type on, I had no understanding. No,
yeah,
I had never seen one. I
Mm.
know in the movies they show you all everybody has cell phones in prisons. No, everybody does not have a cell phone in prison. I had never seen one.
right. Just like everybody don't have to have a shank. I never carried
Exactly.
a shank, never thought about carrying one. You said something that just made me smile, but it's, when I think about the idea that I can control where I move, I can't control where I move, but I can control how I move.
Right.
That is, I think if every person who's been impacted by the justice system or that's incarcerated right now could understand that I can't control where I move, but I can control how I move.
Mhm.
I think that's such a powerful thing because how you move in prison, you don't have to
It's
move like
everything.
everybody says you have to move. There is
Right.
a way that everybody wants you to move, but
Right.
how you move, you have that choice. You have a choice a lot of times. Now, yeah, there's danger depending on where you're at. There's
Mhm.
the ability to be cut off and be on your own, and you put yourself at more risk in those situations. But to really just the couple things. Number one, I think now I'm gonna have to start calling you Miss Jessie, and
You don't have to call me Miss Jessie. No, you do not.
no, we're too far into this. The respect and love I have for you, but that's it right there. That respect shows when people say a couple things I see. You respected yourself enough to walk the way you needed to walk, and other people respected that enough to say, "I acknowledge you, Miss Jessie." And so that's really a big thing as far as the respect and everything, how you walked it out. Um, so when we start thinking about your time in prison, we can see how you lived that. And we can see some of the challenges you have with reentry. Dr. Lawrence, what's another question you want to ask her about after the reentry?
Well, I know she's been working on a documentary, and I'm just curious. I know the viewers would love to hear your journey with respect to where you're at with your documentary and how'd you start it, and just give us like a quick summary, or it'll take as long as you want with respect to your documentary because we'd love to hear about it.
The documentary started because I was referred um, as an as a choice for a program called Represent Justice. So I had to fill out this form, so to speak, online for Represent Justice, and then I had to go through an interview process. I made it to the second phase, and I went through an interview process, and they selected 10 people across the United States who were previously incarcerated and that were who were advocates. And I was one of the 10 that they selected this year. So I became an ambassador for Represent Justice. This organization gives a platform to 10 people across the United States every year who are advocates. And within this platform, they teach them how to write a script, how to produce and direct a film. And they actually finance them to do that. So, for my choice, for my advocacy in my film, I chose to do it on children of incarcerated parents.
Mm.
So, my documentary is on children of incarcerated parents. We are right now in the second cut we're doing the second cut on it. I'll have my final cut probably by the end of July. It will actually premiere in October. And then, of course, I'm going to make sure that Thomas has a copy of it. And you, Dr. Lawrence, will be able to see a copy of it as well. It'll be entered in film festivals and things of that nature. So I'm taking this, what I found, and again, as I mentioned earlier, through all the things that I've done and all the things that I've gone through, I didn't realize that I was positioning myself, remember? And when I became a member of Represent Justice, initially, what I was going to do my documentary on was women who have been incarcerated, because that's what I was an authority on, I thought. And while we were all sitting there talking, the 10 of us, everyone sitting there said, you're like, you are such a mom, you're such an authority and you're such a mom to us. And I was looking at them and I was like, a mom. I was like, what I really know best is how to be a mom in prison. And then I sat there and I just started scratching down notes. I said, I'm gonna do mine. I'm gonna honor my child. I'm gonna give the child within her, a voice. The child within her and the 2.4 million other children, because I had done a dissertation, a paper in college on children of incarcerated parents. I said, I'm going to honor them. At that time, it was 2.4 million children whose parents were incarcerated. I'm going to honor those kids. I'm going to give them all a voice, every single one of them. You're going to hear them for the first time, America. You've been ignoring them all these years. And that became my advocacy.
Excellent.
So today, what I'm all about is allowing people to realize that you have not been listening to, you've decided not to look at, you've decided not to feel children of incarcerated parents. And I'm going to be their voice until they become their voice. I also have a book that I'm publishing that will come out, one of 4 children's books that are going to come out. And they're going to be geared towards children and their caregivers, so that these children realize that they have a voice through the children's book as well. So I am now focused on children of incarcerated parents because they deserve to be heard. They deserve to be seen. When you're talking about victim services does not do anything for the children of the incarcerated parent, and they are victims too. Victim services does not do anything for the caregivers of those children, and they are victims too. They've done no harm to anyone, but they have to take care of the collateral damage that I create through my poor choices.
Wow.
So I have to make amends to my child, who still has a child within her that's not healed. Yes, and to the 2.4 million plus other children out there who are now adults, and to the 5.4 million who have now come up who are children now. Because just because they're adults, and another thing you may not realize is at least 65% of those children who are now adults are successful people and have never been incarcerated. Although society would like for you to believe that those Black and brown children offend themselves and go to prison. No, they don't. What they do become, more than likely, are successful adults with mental health problems that are uncured.
Wow.
Such as abandonment issues, anxiety issues, and things of this nature. That's what really happens, because they have no one to talk to about it.
Wow.
Yeah. When you talk about your film, and everybody that you have on this film has some kind of connection the same way. Talk a little bit about why you did that, and a little bit about that.
So my producer is a child of an incarcerated parent. One of the producers, a part of my producer team. The director of photography and editor is a child of an incarcerated parent. 2 of the actors, the child actors, are children from incarcerated parents as well. The team itself is made up of people who have been touched by incarceration in some form or another. So when we went into that room to do our filming, we prayed up the space first. And I made sure that I was not offending anyone who did not believe, but we were praying up that space regardless. And then we started to film. And it was the calmest set ever. It was a very emotional set. When the 2 children of incarcerated parents, they have a certain segment in the film. I don't want to go too much into it. But to do their part of the film, we made it a closed set. They were the only 2 people in the room, along with the second DP, and we closed the set so that they could do their part. And until we saw the rough cut, nobody knew what they said in their part.
Wow.
And to see their part is very powerful, very powerful. So
You know,
when you actually see it, you remember what I said.
I brought that up because you mentioned how these kids are now adults and they're successful adults, but they have this unhealed mental trauma or whatever it may be. It doesn't mean that they're ineffective in what they do. They are still highly effective. And there's a determinant of health that needs to be addressed by our society, our culture, our people, because it's not that they're not moving things forward. It's just sometimes we need to find a way to bridge that healing. What are some ways that you think about bridging that healing?
Some of the main ways that we can bridge that healing is the school system, our community organizations, and our churches are the keys to all of this. For one thing, within the school system themselves, our teachers have to have sensitivity training to deal with this. We have to have a trauma specialist in the schools. If you can have someone in the schools for a discipline, have a police officer in the schools, you should have a trauma specialist in the school as well. And your teachers should have sensitivity training, because at least a third of your students are dealing with the issue of a parent that's incarcerated. These kids feel that they're the only one, even though a part of their brain realizes they're not. They can't talk to anybody. But if you gave them a space to talk to someone and to realize that they're not alone, you can help them with their mental health easily in that way. They may be at a household where they're taught to, like, say nothing, pretend nothing's happening, or your mom's on vacation, or your dad will be back soon and he's going to be gone for 20 years. You know, you've got to give them a space in school where they are normalized, where they can deal with this issue. You've got to give them a space in the community where there are activities where they are part of the community in a way where they can release some of this stress through art therapy type programs. Say, this kid's parents incarcerated, but normalizes them and allows them to release this angst that they have. You've got to give them programming through the church that makes them a part of the church community, not a part of the church charity case. And in so doing, you're letting that caregiver have a space to come to where that caregiver has people that they can bond with as well, where they're not being pointed out as a pariah, but as a part of. They've got to have some place to de-stress as well, to decompress as well. And the happier they are, the happier that child's going to be. Yes, because that caregiver is not just taking care of that child, they're doing something for that person that's locked up as well. So they're really stressed out. And that child feels all of that. We as children, remember, we felt things that our parents were going through at all times. So if your parents locked up and your caregiver's stressed out, can you imagine what that child is feeling? Those three are the key groups to helping that child have a successful mental health process. The two people that are part of my project that I told you about, one of the producers and the DP of photography and editor, they said they had never, I asked them both 4 questions, but when you hear them speak, they don't sound like questions. They're just making a statement. They said no one had ever asked them before. Now they're in their 40s. Do you realize how heartbreaking that is? That no one ever asked them before?
Right.
And one of those people is my daughter.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm not speaking to you from a space where I read in a book that I should get people like this. I'm speaking to you from a space of lived experience.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm looking at two adults that are very successful, that own their own businesses, that are in the film industry.
Yeah.
That have gone unchecked and unhealed.
Wow.
And they represent so many more like them.
Yeah.
This should not be. Why have we left our children like that?
Why?
Unchecked.
Yes, ma'am.
This should not be happening. So I'm going to do my part until the day I take my last breath. I'm going to do my part.
Yes, love it. You know, when we think about restorative practice, restorative justice, and those types of things, those are buzzwords out there, and they're good. They have good, platforms for it. But one of the things I will say is everything you just said should be a restorative practice in school. This practice in school. This should not be a space where, we're allowing people who don't have the voice that you have to speak into the restorative practices. It should be the mother that has that understands what the daughter is going through or the child is going through. it should be the father that understands what the child is going through, that speaks into the restorative practices that allow these type of perspectives to be heard in a way that heals. Not that restorative practices don't heal, but I think we forget how powerful voices can be. And what you just share right now, Jesse, I've talked to you many times, but right now I'm sitting up here goosebumped up, motivated, and really like you're absolutely 100% right.
The sad part is we're so busy locking them up that we're not thinking about the children that they leave behind. That child does not care where their parent is. They just need to talk to their parent. To them, you're locking their parent up and they're thinking their parent is being hurt and abused. And they're never going to see him again because they watch television. So they think that's what's happening to their parent every day. That child has to live with that. You're doing nothing to ease that angst that that child is going through. And we're just letting them go through it. How can we not be thinking about that as adults with our own children?
Yes.
Would you want your child to go through that?
Right.
We've got to take some responsibility as the adults within the community. We say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, would you mind telling me what the village has been doing all these years? Because they haven't been raising these children.
Right.
You're so worried about these kids that are out in these streets and you're saying they're holding guns and their parents are probably the ones that are locked up. Well, no, their parents are probably the ones that are sitting in front of the projects with a beer bottle in their hand. They're probably not even locked up at all. But that's another story. But the point is, their parents were probably the ones that were locked up.
Right. Correct.
So the village didn't help their parents. We just kept dropping the ball. And then we can't seem to figure out, oh, and let's talk about the children who aged out in the foster homes.
Right.
That you just kicked out on the street and they were homeless. Because I see those kids every day that are living in the streets because you aged out of the foster home and they just boot them out because their parents were locked up. But you say it takes a village to raise a child. Really, I can't tell.
Wow.
Where is the village?
Good question.
You do all these fantastic studies. I mean, there have been some monumental studies on kids ranging from the age of 4 to 18, where these kids have specifically told them what they needed. The government has spent millions of dollars on these studies. I've seen the results of these studies, the statements these kids have made. And that's all I've seen, the statements these kids have made. No solutions.
Yeah, that's so common. That's so common.
So you're great at going to get the answers.
Right.
You just don't feel the need to spend the dollars on the solutions.
Mm.
But you say it takes a village to raise a child. Really?
Yep.
I can't tell.
Wow. Wow. We will listen, but before we go any further, we got to like, share, and subscribe. Especially this episode. It would be criminal for you not to like, share, and subscribe this episode and all other episodes, but this one in particular. Brother Cotton.
So I just want to say, Jesse, for me and listening to you, when I think about this space of advocacy for children and you as the advocate, I think people need to learn how to get behind and learn from a woman like you, from a person like you. And I think the future of advocacy in this space is in really good hands with you, because you not only talk it, you put the work in. You've been putting work in since I've known you. And that's one of the things that a lot of people say. You did 27 years in prison and you came out and spent your little time in your room, but you got out. And, since you've been out, you have been an influencer like none other in this space. And so I think that when we think about influence and where things are going, definitely can't wait to see the film. Definitely can't wait to see the books. And is there any social media or some type of handle that people can get in touch with you with?
Yes, you'll be able to get in touch with me on J Lane Everything's going to break out probably right around August, but it'll be on J Lane Foundation. That's where you're going to find everything at, right? Or on Represent Justice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And the film will be The Candle. That's the name of it. The film is The Candle, and the book, the children's book, is J Lane. So
okay. J Lane, I like that.
Well, Miss Jesse, I will be I will be personally offended, personally and professionally offended if I'm not invited to that red carpet, the viewing, the special viewing of your documentary. Because
I would be honored if you attended. I would be honored if you attended. It's right down the road from Thomas. So
I will be personally and professionally offended if I didn't get an invitation that say, "Hey, we're doing this thing tomorrow. Hurry up, get over here," because I want to be able to learn more, and just admire, and just have a sense of increased respect and honor for our returning citizens. And not only and Thomas has mentioned this in I think our initial episode. The justice impacted transcends just the person that is serving, as you suggested, the children, the family, the neighbors, the neighborhood. So all the people that had a part and piece of you before you went in, they served along, they were impacted as well. So, and that is becoming more and more real to me every episode, every time I do a study and so forth, how the justice impacted is far beyond the person, So, and you characterize that perfectly tonight through the children of those formerly incarcerated persons.
yeah. So Jesse, anything you want to share with our listeners today that you want to help encourage them to understand better, or any final parting words you want to say?
the only thing I want to say to anybody out there is this: if you know of a child whose parent is incarcerated, it takes very little for you to do something for that family, for that caregiver. Give them a spa day, or take the child a game to play. Take the child to the circus. Give them some little activity that they can do with your kids. Take some type of time out to put forth a little effort for a child of an incarcerated parent. Remember, you're part of the village. It's time that we do something to raise that child. I challenge you to do just that.
That's right.
That's good.
That's
I
right.
want to add a little bit something you said earlier. They're not a charity case. This is not charity. This is doing life with somebody who needs people to do life with. They're not somebody that's a castaway. They're not somebody that you have to keep your children away from. They're someone that's been impacted by the justice system. And unless we step in, and unless we recognize doing life on life with somebody is very important, that person is just out there on an island and they're just trying to figure things out. Thank God for that Jesse had the foresight and the ability to stay in her daughter's life throughout the time and parent, and that there are people around that supported her parenting and her decisions and everything else. But everybody doesn't have
Everybody
that.
doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have that. And we talk about standing in the gap for our fellow man. And I can't tell. I challenge you to stand in the gap for a child.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, I think this is coming to an end. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm sure we could talk about this for another hour. May come back for another hour later on.
Yep.
We will after the film. We will after
And
the film.
after the books too. We want to talk about some
And
books
after
too.
the book. Yes.
So we like,
Because there is another level that you're taking all this to. You have a vision of where you're going, and we definitely want to touch on that vision and how that's going to impact the future of many people. Because right now, what you're doing a lot of things. Like we said, you work with the National Incarceration Association, NIA. You're the program. I don't want to mess it up, but the program
Reentry program director.
Yeah, there we go. The reentry program director. So you're really directing some things right now, but that's just that's the ground level. Where you want to go is amazing. And so we'd love to have you back and talk about that future growth and ways that people can support that.
Wow. Well,
And I look forward to it.
yes, yes. Well, I'd say we had the distinct pleasure this evening for the last almost hour of hearing just the lived experience of Miss Jesse Mabery, and the challenges she faced inside of the correction facility, outside of correction facility, but with a main focus on the effects on the children. And we are so grateful for your story that you shared with us this evening, ma'am. And we look
Thank you.
forward in the near future for us for gracing these video waves again, and as Thomas mentioned, talking about other endeavors and books and other things that you're working on. So with that, again, we thank you so very much. And at a Bridge of Light, we believe that everyone and everything is a resource. It
Amen.
takes networks of progression to defeat networks of oppression. So networks of progression to defeat networks of oppression. So how do we make the net work?
And I just want to thank all our listeners
I
to
like
coming
that.
up and listening to Miss Jessie speak today. Remember, like, subscribe, share it, make sure everybody knows, because at Redemption Advancement Alliance, we know that every person has a heartbeat. As long as that person has a heartbeat, there's an opportunity for redemption. Jessie has shown the road to redemption for us today, and we're grateful to have her. Grateful for you all joining us.
Thank you.